Good morning, kindergarten. So today we are going to be reading a book all about Jane Goodall. And Jane Goodall is a woman who did so many amazing things for animals, like you can see on the cover. Let's get started. Front cover, back cover, spine. Touch your back, touch your spine. Open your mind, hands in your lap. It's story time. So the author of our book is Brad Meltzer. Let's do our song. The author writes the words. The author writes the words. Hi-ho, a cheerio. The author writes the words. And the illustrator of the book is Christopher Iliopoulos. Now, the illustrator draws the pictures. The illustrator draws the pictures. The illustrator draws the pictures. Hi-ho, a cheerio. The illustrator draws the pictures. I am Jane Goodall. I am Jane Goodall. On my first birthday, my father bought me a cuddly toy chimpanzee named Jubilee. I used to carry Jubilee with me everywhere. As I got older, when I'd line up all of my toys and play teacher, Jubilee was the one who had his own chair. I didn't just love my toy chimpanzee, though I loved all animals, even the earthworms I found in the garden. My mom told me worms would be safer in the garden, so we took them outside and buried them in their home. So here is Jane and her favorite stuffed animal, Jubilee, and here is her playing with the worms in the garden. Do you have a favorite stuffed animal? You do? Me too. Mine is my teddy bear. At 5 years old, I was curious to learn how chickens lay eggs, so I crawled into my grandmother's hen house to watch. At first, all of the hens were scared of me. Then I decided to crouch in the corner, and if I had moved, the hens would run away. I was patient, though. Finally, after hours of watching, I saw what I was looking for. The hens gave a little wiggle and plop! There was an egg. It was my first research project. Kindergarten, we have seen some chickens lay eggs in our chicken coop with Miss Zia. How amazing is that? In addition to animals, I also love nature. I named the chestnut tree near my house Nookie and the beech tree Beach. Beach was my favorite. Do you have a favorite tree? I know when I was younger, my favorite tree was this little red tree right that I planted in front of my house. That was another thing. I loved reading. Back then, my family didn't have a lot of money. To get books, we went to the library. When I was 7 years old, I got a book that would change my life forever. It was called The Story of Dr. Dolittle. I read it once and again and again and again. It was about a man who could talk to animals. Give me a me too if you've ever read the book Dr. Dolittle. In the book, there was a parrot who would say, if you want to learn how animals talk, you need the power of observation. But what I remember the most is the part where Dr. Dolittle and his animal friends are being chased and they come to a cliff. Right then and there, the monkeys joined hands and feet. They became the bridge. Isn't that beautiful? We can accomplish anything by working together. After reading that book, I vowed that I would go to Africa and live amongst the animals. So here's Dr. Dolittle, and here's the bridge they made. They all collaborated. And let's say this together. Collaboration means Collaboration means I can work together. I can work together. By the time I was 12, I had my own nature group, the Alligator Club. My friends and I raised money to help horses. We took nature walks and wrote down what we saw. And if you wanted to have a high rank in the club, was I the best student? Not really. On school days, it was hard for me to wake up. I didn't like being indoors, but if we were outside or there were animals around, that is where I would get excited. Wow, so Jane Goodall is a student who loves to be outdoors. Give me a me too if you're a student who loves to be outdoors. I know I am. I wanted a job where I could learn more about animals, but back then, if you were a girl, people didn't think that you could be a scientist. They expected girls to be nurses, secretaries, or teachers. I wanted to go to Africa. I wanted to study animals. Luckily, my mom always told me, if you really want something, you need to work hard, persevere, and be determined to do it. Don't ever give up. I never forgot that. Soon I had my chance. One of my friends invited me to visit her family in Kenya, which is a place in Africa, and Kenya is actually where Miss Roberts' family lives. To pay for the trip, I worked as a waitress and hid my money under the carpet. One day, I closed all the curtains and counted it all. Wow, she seemed really excited and like she worked really hard to be able to go on this trip. The trip took 21 days by boat. I was 23 years old, very close to Miss Bear's age. It all seemed like a dream until I saw a giraffe who stared directly at me. He had dark eyes and long lashes. I knew my dream was coming alive. Finally, I was in Africa of Dr. Dolittle. Wow, so her dream is coming alive, just like Amelia Earhart's dream came alive, and hopefully all of your dreams will come alive. 2 months later, my life changed again. Someone told me, if you're interested in animals, you must meet Dr. Leakey. He was an anthropologist, which is a fancy word for saying he studied how humans live, and a paleontologist, which means he studied fossils and bones. At first, he hired me as a secretary. He was quickly impressed with what I knew about animals, including his own pets. Eventually, Dr. Leakey told me about a new job studying chimpanzees up close, and this is our little chimpanzee. He said it would be going to the forest, which would be hard. It would be dangerous. But if we could find out how chimps live today, we would learn more about our history and how our ancestors lived a long time ago. Because before people were humans, we evolved from chimpanzees. You're going to see a picture of that really soon. For a year, I read everything I could about chimpanzees. I was also told that a woman couldn't be alone in the forest. They said I needed a guide, plus a companion. My mom offered to come. I was ready. I'll never forget the day, July 16th, 1960, the day I first set foot in what is the Gombe National Park in Tanzania, Africa. At 26 years old, I had finally made it to the home of the chimpanzees. It was a place that would change my life. So this is the place that changed her life. Wow. That's a big deal, a place where her dream really got to happen. During one of my first explorations, we saw 2 chimpanzees eating in a tall tree. The next day, we didn't see any. The next day, either. For months, I tried to get close, but they kept running away. Then I started going alone. Just me. I'd go to a high area called the peak and look down with my binoculars. In time, I saw that the chimpanzees would hang out in groups of 6 or fewer. The female chimps would be with the children. The male chimps would be with one another. These weren't mindless animals. They were a part of a community. And a community is like what we have in our kindergarten class. We are all friends with one another, and you can see their little chimpanzee communities. Still, it took nearly a year before I could get within 100 yards of the chimpanzees. One day I came back to camp and found out that one of the chimpanzees took their food. The next day I waited and waited. There were no chimpanzees in sight. Then at 4 p.m. I heard a rustling noise. It was a large chimpanzee. That was the name I gave him. Back then, people told me there was a certain way to study animals, that I shouldn't give the chimpanzees names. They said animals were supposed to have numbers, not names. Why, I thought. They thought animals didn't have personalities or emotions. They thought if we gave them names, we'd start pretending they were like us. Do you have any pets that have a name? I know I do. I have 2 cats. I have Coco, my cat, and Kylie, my cat. But that is what no one realized. They were like us. That day, David Graybeard took my nuts and my bananas, and a month later, he had one for my hand. Even later, out in the forest, he slowly approached me and checked to see if I had a banana in my pocket. It was one of my proudest moments. They realized that I was their friend, and they were mine. But she had to be very careful in order to get that close. She didn't just walk right up to them, did she? No, that would have scared them. The same way we have to be very gentle when we are making friends with our chickens on our garden. Over time, by seeing the chimpanzees as individuals, I could truly understand them. As I watched, I learned one of the coolest things of all. One day, I saw David Graybeard stripping leaves from a twig, then stringing the twigs into a mound. He wasn't just using the tool, he had made a tool. Before that, scientists thought only humans could make tools, but there was no doubt that these animals were intelligent, and intelligent means that they have very big brains. Their brains are growing so much, just like ours are in kindergarten. Every night I'd write in my journal about what I observed, and every day I saw the chimpanzees doing the same things. They were holding hands, they were tickling, they were kissing, they were even patting each other on the back. The more I observed, the more I learned. Soon I had so much information, I needed a tape recorder, and a tape recorder is where you go click, and you can record yourself going blah, 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 or talking. Then I needed an assistant to help observe all of the chimpanzees. 6 years later, what started with a notepad and binoculars became a full research center. And a research center is when you study really closely something that you are passionate about learning more about. Today, thanks to our work in Tanzania, the whole world knows that animals have their own personality and complex relationships. In my life, people told me that there was a certain way to do things, a certain way to study animals, a certain way that girls should behave. They told me to follow the rules. Instead, I followed my gut and my heart. In your life, it will be easy to see how others are different from you, but there's so much to gain if instead you see how alike we are. All of us, all living things, share so much in common. We have so many things. When we realize that and look out for each other, that's the most beautiful way to live together. So, kindergarten, what we are going to do, the same way Jane Goodall really wanted to study and grow her brain all about chimpanzees. I'm going to have you record a video and tell me what you want to study and learn all about. I'm really excited to see your research topics. Thanks, kindergarten.